momentous name, isn't it? And an appropriate name for this river 100 years ago. A river that winds its way like a snake for 400 miles to the Amazon. A river that in the early 1900s was unknown to the civilized world. It was one of the last unexplored places on Earth. But its secrets would soon be revealed by a former United States president, Theodore Roosevelt. It was 1912, and Theodore Roosevelt had just lost his attempt at a third term as president. He was not happy, but he responded as he had to so many things in his life, taking on an adventure. And for him, that turned out to be going to South America. It was an idea that was spawned by an invitation from Brazil to go and give some guest lectures down there. But Roosevelt was going to take this as an opportunity to do some exploration of his own, to go up the Amazon River and take a look around. But it would evolve into something so much more than that. It was a casual suggestion by a friend of his upon their arrival in Brazil to drastically change the course of this trip, and that would end up leaving a mark in history. That friend's suggestion was to go down a previously unexplored and unknown river in the middle of the Amazon. Roosevelt loved the idea. He seized upon it. This is great. And he made the decision to go down the river of doubt. And in December of 1913, Theodore Roosevelt, at the age of 55, after completing these speaking engagements, began this great journey. With him was his youngest son, Kermit, who had been working and living in Brazil, and also a Brazilian, a Colonel Candido Rondon, a man who had helped construct the telegraph wire across the Amazon, and who would help survey this river and would be Roosevelt's co-commander. Now you might think that this expedition began at the River of Doubt. You'd be wrong. It began far from the River of Doubt because it required 2 months just to get there. It required traveling by riverboat and then over land and through wilderness, over an expanse of land more than twice the size of Texas. It was a tremendous undertaking all by itself. It was so hard that many men abandoned the expedition. Provisions were lost. Mule and oxen perished. The men suffered from insects and mosquitoes, the weather, constant rain, and they were suffering from disease as well. Kermit himself had a bout of malaria from that early point in the trip. But after 2 months of journeying across that land down there, they eventually did reach the River of Doubt. Amazingly, though, they arrived there without any means of getting down the river. They needed a boat to get down the river, and that's the whole purpose they went there. The 800-pound motorboats that Roosevelt had arrived in Brazil with, they were unsuited for that journey over the land. The canoes that they had opted for, they had to be abandoned because the mules and oxen could no longer carry them. They were left with their only option: purchasing 7 dilapidated, dugout tree trunks from a local Amazonian Indian tribe. These things weighed as much as 2,500 pounds without anything in them. But that's what they were left with. And so, in February of 1914, 22 men started down the River of Doubt. But at this point, it was a race against time. Imagine that their survival depended on running this river in the middle of nowhere, not knowing how long the river even was. And already their supplies were running out. And the dangers amassed against them were countless. The river itself, their sole source of survival, was also their greatest challenge. That first day, it started out so peacefully and calm, but soon gave way to serious rapids that couldn't be navigated with these dugouts. They had to pull ashore, unload everything, and portage around, macheteing their way through the rainforest. It was a huge undertaking, an exhausting effort that required days just for that first set of rapids. And they get back in the water, and soon they're doing it all over again. And That was a theme for much of the expedition. It put the whole thing at risk, including their lives. The wildlife was also a danger. Roosevelt himself almost lost his life to a coral snake, a snake whose bite will kill you in 30 minutes. One of these snakes was discovered in camp, and amongst the chaos, it was Roosevelt who went to stomp on the snake, only to have it twist around and strike him in the foot. If not for his thick leather boots, he would have perished right there. Disease was also rampant. Many of the men suffered from malaria, including Kermit and Roosevelt. But Roosevelt's malaria was compounded when he got a horrible infection when he gashed his leg on a rock in the river. That infection, coupled with the malaria, brought him to the brink of death. In fact, at one point he insisted on being left behind. His co-commander, Colonel Rondon, agreed he must be left behind. If not for Kermit, he would have been left there to perish, but Kermit insisted on finding a way to get him out. Despite all these challenges, in April of 1914, the expedition did reach the mouth of the river. They only had 4 of the original dugouts remaining. Their provisions were depleted, and 3 men had been lost. 1 had drowned, 1 was murdered, and 1 was abandoned as punishment for the murder. And Roosevelt was on the brink of death, yet he survived. And he accomplished this great feat. It was amazing for that time. And the world would learn about it, and the river would be renamed Rio Roosevelt. I love this story. It's a great story of adventure and exploration, a story about the human spirit, human endurance in the face of adversity. And the message for us is to go out and take on an adventure, take some risks, because the rewards can be so great.